In Romans 1 and verse 16, it says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it the righteousness of God is revealed, from faith to faith. As it is written, but the righteous man shall live by faith." Faith is a living thing. It's born in someone. But where does it come from? In Romans 10 and verse 17, it says, "So then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God." The word of God is a seed. Then it's planted in the human heart that brings forth faith. There's a story about a Christian woman who used to invite her unsaved neighbor to church every day. But every time she would invite her, her neighbor said no or made an excuse. This went on for years. Then one day, out of the blue, the neighbor said, "You've been inviting me to church for years, and so I'm going to go with you this Sunday." The Christian woman was so happy. She went home and got on her knees and she prayed to God. "Please, God, let the preacher preach a sermon that will be so good and so applicable to her that she will become a Christian." Well, they got to church that morning and they sat down in the pew, and the preacher got up to preach, and his subject was the genealogy of the Old Testament. The Christian woman was crushed as she listened to so-and-so begot so-and-so, who begot so-and-so. Well, they went home and after church, and that evening, the Christian woman got a call from her neighbor. And her neighbor said, "I just want to tell you that after that sermon Sunday, this morning, I have decided to become a Christian." And the Christian woman said, I don't understand. What was it in that sermon that would make you want to become a Christian? And she said, "I listened to the preacher say, and so begot so-and-so, and he died. And so begot so-and-so, and he died. And he died, and he died. And I realized that my life is so very short, and that I need to be prepared to meet my Lord." I say that to tell you that if you're inviting someone to church, if you're praying for someone to come and hear the Word of God, don't give up. Because the Word of God is powerful and active and sharper than any two-edged sword, and able to judge between the thoughts and the intentions of the heart. The Word of God can cause someone to become a child of God by giving birth to faith. But there's also another Word of God. It's called by the Apostle Paul living epistles. He said in 2 Corinthians 3 and 2, "Ye are our epistles, written in our hearts, known and read of all men." You are giving birth to faith in the lives of others as they watch you live from day to day, as they see your faith and your love in God. They're reading the Word of God in your life. The Apostle Paul said to the young preacher Timothy, he said, when I call to remembrance the unfringed faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois, and now thy mother Eunice, and I am persuaded that in thee also. At the age of 25 years old, I started looking. I started searching. I knew that there had to be something more to life than the way I was living it. And I picked up a Bible and I tried to read that Bible, but it didn't make any sense to me. But I did remember my grandmother and how her life was a life of faith and love in the Lord. And so I called her up and I said, "Grandmother, can you explain the Bible to me?" And she said, "No, I can't teach you, but I can have someone there that can." And they came over and shared the gospel with me, and faith was born in me. I'm saying to you that someone is watching you. And it's so important, the words of faith and the life of love for God that you live, because you are giving birth to faith in someone. But most important, in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 2, it says, "Fixing our eyes on Jesus, who is the author and perfecter of faith." Jesus is the author and perfecter of faith. In our fellowship, we partake of the Lord's Supper every Sunday. It is the focal point of our worship. It is the center of our faith. Many people think that the Lord's Supper is only for Christians, but they're mistaken. In 1 Corinthians 11 and 26, it says, "For as often as you eat this bread and drink the cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." Did you hear that? We proclaim the Lord's death until he comes. We proclaim by that bread and that fruit of the vine that God loved us so much he gave his only Son. We proclaim that that Son Jesus took the burden of our sin on himself on the cross. And as people watch us take that Lord's Supper, we're giving birth to faith. For Jesus is not only the author of our faith, because we could have no faith without his death on the cross, but he's the perfecter of our faith. Our faith is not in faith. Our faith is in Jesus, who by his perfect life and death perfects what we can't accomplish on our own. If this podcast has been an encouragement to you, please go to johndkimbrough.com and hear more. Thank you.